From nature expanses offering magical stones that provide their holders with health, wealth, and happiness courtesy of powerful supernatural forces, to former Nazi headquarters where it's rumored the spirits of long-dead spies, still sour over the outcome of World War II, still linger. Are you ready to brave our 5th list of picks for some of the most haunted hikes in the United States? Number 5. Big Cypress National Preserve. Big Cypress National Preserve, which is located around 45 miles to the west of Miami on the Atlantic coastal plain in southern Florida, is a United States national preserve that, alongside Big Thicket in Texas, boasts the title of being the first national preserve in the U.S. National Park System following their establishment. Historically, land now holding Big Cypress has played host to human habitation dating back more than 2,000 years, with the native Calusa holding dominance over the region until the 14th century when some of the first Europeans arrived. Sadly, through the 19th and 20th centuries, colonization of the area would result in its decimation, with wildlife and timber resources nearly exhausted entirely. In 1901, companies would begin drilling for oil across Florida lands, and following more than 80 failed holes, in 1943, the state's first significant strike was produced under the Humble Oil Company, which would later reestablish itself as Exxon, who found their payload on the northwestern portion of what is now Big Cypress. Through the 1960s, construction was launched through the Big Cypress area under Miami International Airport. However, following joint protests made by native parties, local hunters, and conservationists, these plans were scrapped, and subsequently, in 1974, a national preserve was established to ensure the area's ongoing protection. Big Cypress National Preserve remains open into the present, offering options in camping, canoeing, kayaking, and birdwatching, all within an ecosystem ripe with lush plant and wildlife, and cut through by a range of twisting hiking trails, on which those who have braved them have reported a mess of otherworldly happenings, including disembodied footsteps heard through the brush, voices that emanate from empty spaces, and extreme temperature fluctuations. The entirety of preserve grounds are rumored to be haunted by the countless generations of native ancestors who once resided within, and common are reports of run-ins with the manifestations of their spirits in attire spanning back to ancient times, while some accounts of confrontations with these presences detail being stalked or even chased off preserve lands. Others with native bloodlines have told of passive encounters in which these aged souls impart timeless knowledge. Several informal investigations of Big Cypress have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and strange orbs and half-formed silhouettes in photography, while others have told of the constant feelings of being watched or followed by a presence unseen, and of run-ins with the legendary skunk ape. Number 4. The Murphy Ranch. The Murphy Ranch, located off of Sullivan Fire Road in the Rustic Canyon area of Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles, California, is an infamous abandoned ranch site initially designed as a headquarters for Nazi activity on U.S. soil that was intended to be able to fully support its inhabitants for long periods of time while in isolation. Historically, at the tail end of the 1930s and through the start of World War II, Norman and Winona Stevens would meet with a German by the name of Herr Schmidt and would convince themselves that once Germany won the war, that America's government would crumble and that the country would slip into anarchy, resulting in their preemptive plan to establish a base on a chunk of land that could keep them safe through the sure-to-be ensuing pandemonium. The compound they would construct would boast a power station, machine shed, irrigated hillsides, raised gardens, gigantic water supplies, and even fuel reserves. It would accommodate various pathways and staircases in neighboring hillsides to better patrol the area, and eventually the duo would even start planning the construction of a 4-story mansion home. This plan would never grow to fruition, however, as on December 8th of 1941, just preceding the attack of Pearl Harbor, the couple, along with members of a 50-strong caretaker force, were detained when local police raided their compound. Following the war, the ranch would be transformed into an artist retreat for a period before it was left abandoned, and eventually it would fall into the hands of the city, who, in 2016, demolished several original structures, following findings that they were both unsafe and unsalvageable. The Murphy Ranch remains open to visitors into the present, offering a range of original buildings, fascinating history, and a roughly 3.5-mile hike to and fro, alongside stories of ghostly Nazis connected connected to the property and lives since extinguished. Supernatural activity at the Murphy Ranch has also been attributed to both Nazi experimentation and to occult rituals performed on site, and those who have braved it have reported extreme cold spots and breezes that pick up out of nowhere, the constant feelings of being watched or followed by someone unseen, and encounters with shadowy figures that have acted aggressively toward the living. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, random battery death in electronics, and orbs captured in the backgrounds of photography, while a handful of accounts tell of hikers being chased from the area by an overwhelming and inexplicable feeling of anxiety or dread, which only seems to worsen as they get nearer to the heart of the aged compound. Lastly, and reported commonly at Murphy, are the sounds of children crying or screaming heard on the winds, and phantom conversations that always seem to emanate from just out of sight. Number 3. Cedar Mountain. Cedar Mountain, also recognized as Spirit Mountain, and located in Park County overlooking the town of CODY in Wyoming, is a prominent 7,880-foot elevation, widely renowned for its holding of the monument dedicated in honor of William Frederick Buffalo Bill CODY, who, by some accounts, might actually be buried within the mountain itself. Historically, the Wild West legend Buffalo Bill is recognized as the founder of CODY, and in his 1906 will, he would request to be buried on Cedar Mountain, with a buffalo monument looking onto the town that he loved and helped to create. However, in a 1913 will, it's then later documented that he would leave his burial arrangements to his wife, Louisa. In 1917, CODY would pass on in Denver, after which his wife would accept a monetary offer from both the city of Denver and from the Denver Post for his remains to be interred in the city in an effort to increase tourism. Louisa would later claim that CODY had wanted to be laid to rest on top of Lookout Mountain out of Golden, Colorado, a claim that was further supported by their daughter Irma, by his own sister, and by several other close friends. However, additional family would join the ranks of those who felt the faithful soldier, legendary hunter, and unparalleled showman should really be interred in the town he'd helped establish in his honor. One local fable claims the townsfolk actually banded together to steal CODY's body from the city morgue, after which they laid him to rest on Cedar Mountain. And whether or not there's any truth to this tale, it is ironic that the elevation's iconic buffalo monument stands right where he'd intended it to. The area offers a roughly 6-mile trail to and fro the site, and additionally, the mountain boasts an impressive system of caves which, though they are gated off to the general public, can actually be explored with required permissions under the Forest Service. Eerily, lore surrounding Cedar Mountain dates back to ancient tribes native to the region and persists into more recent times, with legends telling of a race of magical little beings who inhabited several mountainous regions across the state, Cedar included, and while some stories detail their healing powers and positive deeds, others claim them to be man-eaters. Chillingly, over the centuries, 2 tiny mummified bodies have been discovered on mountains in Wyoming, further fueling these aged tales. And what's more, disturbing are accounts from those hiking about who have told of being stalked by said creatures at great lengths. Within the honeycomb-like cave system below Cedar Mountain, the countless bodies of lost spelunkers remain within their unfathomable depths, and those who have braved the deep dark have told of disembodied footsteps and voices, and even of encounters with the manifestations of specters in caving gear spanning the eras, who, on several occasions, have attempted to warn adventurers from continuing any further. Buffalo Bill's memorial sits just adjacent to the grave of Breck Moran, another influential figure from the town's history, and some claim Breck's spirit remains, watching over the community he helped grow. Lastly, the ghost of Buffalo Bill CODY himself has been sighted walking about various trails, and has been known to manifest suddenly, startling hikers nearby before disappearing just as quickly. Number 2. Fairy Stone State Park. Fairy Stone State Park, located in Patrick County, Virginia, is a popular and sprawling public expanse that, at 4,741 acres, boasts the title of being the largest of the original 6 state parks, and is recognized for its holding of the mysterious fairy stones, or starolite formations, which are a mixture and composition of iron, silica, and aluminum that bind together to form strange, cross-shaped structures. While fairy stones can be found elsewhere, no other location on Earth is known for stones near as perfect in cross shape, or even half as abundantly dispersed as they are at our site in question. Historically, through the 1920s, various interests would begin working on the establishment of assorted state parks in Virginia. However, most of these spaces were mere pipe dreams until the establishment of the Civilian Conservation Corps in 1933, which would allow for the refining of such impressive expanses. Around this same time, 6 separate areas would be selected for future park lands, including the bounds of Ferrystone, whose lands were donated the same year by former president of the Southwest Virginia Trust Company and former Roanoke Times owner Junius B. Fishburne, and until 1941, local CCC workers would operate from a camp on park grounds, establishing roads, trails, picnic sites, cabins, a restaurant structure, bathhouse, dam, sanitation system, and more, after which the CCC camp was removed. Ferrystone State Park remains open into the present, offering options in camping, cabins, a conference center, swimming holes, sublime boating conditions, picnic sites, 2 playgrounds, and a range of hiking trails that are, according to legend, purportedly plagued with supernatural energies. The near-infinite Ferrystone formations that can be found scattered across park grounds have long been shrouded in local Virginian myth and ancient lore dating back countless millennia, with the most popular associated story telling that long before the area had ever been discovered by man, fairies would dance and play around springs of water and were joined by wood nymphs and naiads, but that one day an elfin messenger arrived from a city far away with news of the death of Christ in the east. When the fairy folk received this news, they wept, and as their tears fell upon the earth and its rocks, they were transformed into small crosses, immortalizing the moment that took place on the opposite end of the earth. Over time, the belief would form that possessing one of these fairy stones would offer its holder health, luck, protection from accidents, and the like. And more recently, those who have gone searching for the fabled formations have reported run-ins with actual fairies who flit about the surrounding parklands, and that are usually described as no larger than a dragonfly. Additionally, the depths of Ferrystone Lake harbors the remnants of the community of Fairdale, which began as a family estate to the Hairstons in 1776, evolved into a coal town by 1905, and through the 1920s ended up drying out. And later, in 1941, any who remained were literally forced from their homes to make way for the filling of the lake. Chillingly, a handful of reports detail apparitions spied moving about the lake shores that are believed to be the restless spirits of those who were displaced for its creation, forever searching for their rightful domiciles. Number 1. Constitution Lakes Park. Constitution Lakes Park, located off of South River Industrial Boulevard Southeast in Atlanta, Georgia, is a 200-acre scenic wetland expanse whose multi-trail system has hikers exploring paved paths, unpaved trails, and segments of boardwalk over scenic wetlands and marshy lakes. Historically, the lake's site sits near one of several locales that were originally utilized by those native to the region for harvesting soapstone, and much later, in 1892, S.F. Kane and J.R. Knapp would establish the South River Brick Company and would purchase 51 acres locally for use in their business. Following a series of financial hardships, the South River Brick Company was forced to sell its operations in 1909. Subsequently, in 1915, the new owner would declare bankruptcy, and in 1929, the property would be purchased under the Chattahoochee Brick Company. Over time, the old clay pits would be filled with water to form the Constitution Lakes, and while popular amongst local anglers, these bodies of water would sit namely unused until 2003, when they were purchased under DeKalb County for the establishment of a park. Unfortunately, by 2011, a good amount of trash had piled up across park bounds. However, this would prompt local carpenter Joel Slayton to step in, and to create the site's iconic Doll's Head Trail out of various discarded doll parts and junk found scattered across the preserve, which in turn spurred a number of cleanup efforts. In more recent years, Constitution Lakes has become a popular stop for birdwatchers, hikers, anglers, and nature enthusiasts of all wakes, and the aforementioned hike features viewings of not just dolls, but of other decorative installments including sheet metals, old television sets, and brick ruins. While the Doll's Head Trail is a rather limited loop, it's widely considered one of the most unique hikes in the US. Over its documented existence, the Constitution Lakes Park has been surrounded in a number of local legends and ghost stories, with those frequenting its grounds reporting disembodied voices heard on the winds, objects sighted moving on their own, and orbs and strange figures captured in photography. During its time as a quarry of sorts, hundreds of workers would slave over shovels and red clay for very little to no pay, with a good portion of these laborers comprised of convicts leased from local prisons. And due to the extreme nature of the job, a number of these workers that were considered quite disposable would expire while performing their tasks, to exhaustion, to heat, and to other accidents. To add to this hellish environment, laborers were often mistreated and abused, and in one instance, it's actually documented that a mother who tracked down her son that was sold from camp to camp ended up finding the young man crippled from the utter assault his body had endured, and unable to use his left arm. This tortured past is speculated to have left its own supernatural scars, and also reported throughout the park are phantom screams and cries heard through the night, the constant feelings of being watched or followed, and encounters with a range of apparitions in old-fashioned attire, many that appear malnourished or that bear bruising or other grievous injuries. Along the park's trails, namely on the Doll's Head, hikers have told of shadowy figures that stalk the living, of the sounds of quickened footsteps that follow and seemingly close in on lone adventurers, and of harrowing accounts of various dolls moving their heads or eyes to follow those who pass. Taking its fascinating history into consideration, and coupling it with such a chilling slew of purported hauntings and associated scary stories, we felt Constitution Lakes Park was the perfect choice as this list's most haunted hike in the US. Thanks for joining us for our 5th list of some of the most haunted hikes in the United States. If you enjoyed our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll catch you next time.